Good morning, my magnificent friends. Here we are, Tea with Sue. I'm Sue Paulson, your magnificence mentor, and it's my delight to be back here today. Can you believe this is episode 25? Wow, time flies, right? Whether you're having fun or not, time flies. So as I got thinking about it, so it's a little celebration for me because at 20, the 25th episode seems kind of special. You know, people mark their 25th anniversary or uh, there's lots of occasions that 25 years is a grand celebration, or maybe 25 years with the same company and so on. So today I'm celebrating episode 25. I thought our topic today could be about relationships. Now, again, this is a big topic, and so I'm going to spend more than one tea with Sue on this, but we'll make a start today. So I got a little video from a friend through email about this young woman who was calling her mother. She was a newlywed, so she'd just come back from her honeymoon, and her mom is saying, well, honey, how was the honeymoon? And she's, oh, mom, it was so great. It was just the best time, and we had such a lovely time. But then we got home, and then this young woman bursts into tears. Well, he's changed since we got home, and he's using all these four-letter words. And her mom gets kind of concerned and says, well, but honey, what four-letter words is he using? Well, words like wash and iron and dust. And mama got this kind of strange look on her face, and that was the end of the video. So I couldn't help but laugh because roles and expectations, right? When we enter into relationship with someone else, then it becomes reasonably clear, reasonably quickly, what's expected of us. So it's pretty obvious that the young man in question felt that now that he had a wife, then cooking and cleaning and washing and ironing and dusting and all those things were going to be very important to him. And maybe she hadn't quite understood that that was part of her role as his wife. So then the fun begins, right? So relationships. Well, when we're first born, we don't really know about relationships. We don't know that we're different from anyone else. We don't even know that our body parts are different. That oh, this hand is, wow, this is really strange. What is this now? And who's controlling those fingers moving? And so it's this incredible world of wonderment and delight as babies begin to explore what's around them. And at some point, they begin to understand that when they cry, wanting something, and somebody comes into the room, whether it's a mother or a father or a brother or a sister, doesn't really matter, that, oh, the voice is different, but they don't quite understand. So it's not, but they get it pretty soon. Oh, when this person comes into the room, they look after me, and away we go from here. So we learn pretty quickly to have expectations around getting our needs met. You know, we cry and somebody comes and looks after us, or maybe we end up with negative expectations because we cried and cried and cried and cried and cried and nobody came. So it sets up something in our psyche and our brains that leads us in one direction or another. And of course, as we grow, that direction we could have a very positive perspective about that, or maybe we could have a negative perspective about it. So when we talk about relationships, let's start with our parents. So now the first thing that it's important to acknowledge is there's no training manual to become a parent. You're just in it. as soon as the baby is born, I don't care how many books you read, and I don't care how much preparation that you've made, whether it's babysitting other people's kids or thoroughly immersing yourself in childhood psychology. Not much of that matters in the big scheme of things, because nothing really prepares you for the reality of, the idea of children is wonderful. And the reality is something entirely different. Not that it's not wonderful having kids, it is. And a friend used to say to me, well, Sue, life is a sweet sour. I'm going, oh yeah. So that's what happens when we become a parent. Now, when we're kids, we learn what parents are as we go. And parents learn who kids are as they go and as they grow. Well, so my son is 37 now. I can't believe that, but he is. Anyway, it doesn't take much but a heartbeat of a second to go back in time and remember what it was like as a new mom. I was terrified. I had no clue what to do with this helpless little infant who now was my responsibility 24/7. And his dad didn't really have a clue either. So we did the best we could. So talk about embarking on a grand adventure and a grand experiment, because just when I got to the point where I thought, oh, I've got this figured out now, I know what's going to happen next, then my child would do something entirely different. And I'm going, oh, now what? Now what do I do about this? So it's a hard job that can be somewhat thankless along the way as a parent. And we're scared all the time. So let's acknowledge that and think about the fact that our parents were in the same boat. Now, in my grandparents' day, the roles of a parent and the expectations of life were somewhat different, because they, for a good part of their lives, especially when their kids were small, they were struggling. So struggling to put food on the table, struggling to keep a roof over their heads. And so parenting was very different. And it was an era of harsh discipline, of making sure kids knew their responsibilities young and early, and you toe the line and you help out because everybody has to pitch in to survive. That was really the bottom line in those days. So my grandmother, who had, on my dad's side, who had 7 children, 2 of them twins. Well, at one point there were 4 of them under the age of 4. Well, whew, this is busy. And of course the 2 oldest, my dad and his next brother, were mischievous, curious, getting into trouble lots. So you can imagine how tough it must have been for my grandmother when she's nursing twins to look after these little toddlers who want to learn what was going on. And it must have been really scary for her. But there you are in it. I mean, I don't think they knew necessarily how to prevent babies in those days. And so the babies came when the babies came, and as many as were going to come, that's how many came. So when I think about that evolution, and of course, how do we learn anything about being a parent? Well, we observe, and we have our parents as role models, and if you're fortunate to have had grandparents, you have them as role models, and some people even have had great grandparents that were role models. So each generation tends to follow along, well, that worked for my parent, and so I'll do the same. And sometimes that behavior is totally without thinking. It's just a rote, well, this is the way it's always been done, and so this is the way we're going to do it too. Now, as my parents were in that mode of starting to raise a family, there were books to talk about parenting. And Dr. Spock was my mom's Bible about what to do and what not to do. Whether he had any good ideas or not, she followed a lot of what he had to say, because there was this growing consciousness that, well, maybe I don't want to raise my kids like I was raised. And so I think there's this quest as human beings to want to do a better job than was done before. So we have this awareness, and particularly if treatment of us when we were kids was pretty harsh, or the circumstances were tough, then we want a better life for our kids than maybe what we went through. So it's just natural then to say, okay. And of course, I was the same. I think back to my childhood, which was a relatively easy childhood in lots of ways. But still, there were things that my parents did that I took great exception to. And I thought, that's not the way to treat a child. And so then as I got into parenthood, I vowed I was going to do things differently. Well, so and so what I said to my husband was, well, when our son has to go to the psychological coach at some point in his adulthood, I want him to go because we made different mistakes, not the same mistakes as our parents made. Because I was very clear as a new parent that it was pretty for sure that I was going to make some mistakes. And of course I did. When I look back at some of the mistakes I made as a parent, I shake my head and wished mightily for a do-over. There were times when I had an opportunity right then and there for a do-over, and I did what I could to make it right when I crossed a line that I never wanted to cross. So, but that's life, right? That's experimenting, that's doing the best we can. And so I did the best I could. And Trevor's father did the best he could. And I have to say, maybe partly because of us and maybe despite us, he turned out darn fine. He just, because at some point our kids choose their own path. They choose how to make sense of life in their own way that could be very different from the way we chose. And sometimes we might look at our kids and think, wow, did they really come from me? Because they're so different. But that's because they have the same opportunity as we did to look at life and decide how they were in relation to life, in relation to who they meet, in relation to the decisions that they make, and so on. So it's all about relationships. Now, of course, one of the things that I read about kids in one of the parenting books, one of the books espoused this idea of quality time with your child. That, well, it doesn't really matter if you don't spend a lot of time or quantity of time with your child, as long as the time you spend is quality time. Well, I don't know about you, but what I know inside me is I wanted all of my parents' undivided attention. I didn't want just a little bit of quality time. I wanted quantity and I wanted quality. That was just the way it was. So we're pretty egocentric when we're first born, and we don't understand, well, why are they going off to work when I want their undivided attention here? Why aren't they willing to play with me 24/7? Like, what's that all about? So we want all of that. And of course, it's not feasible. We learn at some point that, okay, I guess sharing is something that we're taught. So not only am I required to share my toys, which I don't actually want to do, but I'm required to share space and share my time with my siblings in relation to our parents. And so that And there's where the challenges start, right? Because in our own minds, we're perfectly justified in wanting it all. But we don't live alone, and we're social beings, and there are other people involved. And so to make things work, it's only practical and natural that we start to adjust. We start to say, okay, well, maybe I can't have all their time, but if I can have this much, that would be great. So we have these expectations, and of course, the second that something shifts and we're not getting what we feel we need, then some of the resentment can build up. So, for example, I can remember school came pretty easy to me as a kid, and I was 2 years behind my older brother. Well, he had some struggles in the grade that he was in one particular year, and I can remember I come home with this report card that had really good marks in all the categories. Well, did I get any attention for that? No. They hauled my brother into the room and closed the door, and they're giving him what for, because his marks are poor, and da 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 da. And I'm sitting on the outside of the door, kind of listening in, thinking, well, how come he's getting all the attention? I'm the one that got the good marks. So you know how it goes, right? I don't. So there's one example, and you probably have dozens of similar kinds of things that take us away from our sense of self. And so then there's some unworthiness. We talked about unworthiness last week. Some unworthiness that can quickly set in to say, well, how good do I have to be in order to get more of their attention? Like what else could I do that would have them turn to me? And of course, so I hide out in judgment. I quickly say, oh well, there must be something wrong with me, or maybe I have resentment for my parents, and there's something wrong with them. Or then I rag on my older brother and say, well, what's the matter with him, that how come he's getting all the attention, and why doesn't he just smarten up and leave me to have the space I want? So we stumble through relationships when we're young because we don't know. I didn't take a class in school on how to be a good friend, for example, or how to be a good student in relation to other people, how to be a good human being. You just learned by doing and watching other people. Well, sometimes our role models weren't that adept at getting through life. And when adversity hit, they had real challenges in struggling with that. So as an example, my grandfather on my mom's side had some mental challenges with depression and certain kinds of conditions that they really didn't understand that well in those days. And so he would go back and forth between rage on one hand and total withdrawal and seclusion on another. Well, in a typical family household, that's really hard on everybody. And it's hard on the parents, it's hard on the parents' relationship, and it's really hard on the kids because they're tiptoeing around because they don't know what's expected of them because it's unpredictable, right? And as kids, we love predictability. We love to be able to say, okay, this is my routine, and this is what always happens, and this is what I always do. And then when that gets disrupted, well, we're thrown for a loop. And so, but of course, change is the constant thing that we struggle to deal with because we want some level of security and a feeling of everything's going to be okay. So when it's not, it has a big impact on us. So when that happens, and of course, when we get to adulthood, we are looking at okay, I'm getting ready for an intimate relationship with a partner. Well, do we know how to do that? Sort of, maybe, but we're bringing all of what we learned, the good, the bad, and the ugly, into whatever relationship is potential in front of us. And of course, they're bringing everything that they learned. So whether the bags are neatly packed or not, the bags are coming with each of us. And if we really didn't learn some good skills about how to engage with one another as adult to adult in a more intimate relationship, it can be a problem. It can be definitely a challenge. And so then a new game begins. So, oh my, relationships. I love being in relationship with other people. And quite frankly, I also love being by myself. So I'm going to end this session by suggesting that the most important relationship that you want to build is the relationship with yourself. That's a lot of what we've been talking about over these 24 other sessions and this one in Tea with Sue. So it's worth examining, how am I in relationship with myself? Because despite our nurturing environment when we were growing up, or lack of, we do grow into who we are today. And we're the ones that have the ability to change our minds about things. We have the ability to forgive those situations that were less than desirable. We have the ability to forgive the people who didn't necessarily know any different, but they did the best they could. And of course, in doing that, and forgive ourselves for the mistakes and missteps along the way, because it was all a learning. So when we can do that, then it helps us grow in our own sense of relationship with ourselves, where we have a strong relationship. So it's not that we're looking for a partner to, quotes, complete us. You know, I'm only half a person and I need somebody else in my life to be the other half. It's working towards, okay, I'm 100% and I want somebody else who's 100%. Let's see what we can grow from there. So this week, think about who you are in relation to yourself and who you are in relation to other people, the most important people in your life. Who are you in relationship to them? And are there things you can do that might mend or enhance that relationship so that you can release some of whatever baggage we all carry and lighten your load, lighten up? You know you can do this because you're that magnificent. I want the most magnificent relationships for you that you can have. And this would be a starting point. Now, in celebration of this 25th episode, I decided that I would like to offer my listeners, my viewers, a no-charge 30-minute one-on-one Tea with Sue. So if you're at a place in your life where you just need somebody to listen, somebody that you can share a particular something with, and have them have no agenda about the outcome of that sharing, where there's total confidentiality and just total empathy for whatever you're going through, then I invite you to book a session with me. Now, how you can do this is you download my app, The Magnificence Mentor, go to the video category that says Tea with Sue. Under one of the videos, especially the latest ones, there's going to be a call to action button that says book a no charge 30-minute Tea with Sue. And when you hit that link, it'll take you to my calendar. And you can pick from the time frames that are there in front of you, and we'll either do a phone call or a Zoom call, whatever your choice. So I welcome any of you who would like to have a one-on-one tea with Sue, and it would be so fun. Fun for me to be on the other side of the equation instead of talking all the time, to listen to you and honor where you're at, and we go from there. So do have a marvelous weekend. It's hot here in Edmonton, Alberta, and it's going to be an even hotter weekend. So you can see my fan running in the background. Please subscribe to my channel and like it. If you'd like to leave a comment, I always love to read those and will respond to them. Just have the most glorious day ever, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now, my magnificent friends.